WordNerds, happy Tuesday. NaNoWriMo 2019 is just a little more than a week away and things are starting to get kind of intense. I feel like all I think about at this point is NaNoWriMo, but I think maybe that's a good thing. So for today's video, I wanted to share a few different NaNoWriMo tips covering a variety of topics, and by a few, I mean 100. I don't know. I've been doing Nano for a long time. Obviously, no one piece of advice is going to be perfect for everybody. Take whatever makes sense for you and absolutely ignore the rest. But we're going to kick things off with tip number 1, which is figure out your premise. Whether that is going to be something super simple or very, very complicated with big outlines and all of that, figure out the essence of the story you want to focus on during November, because that will go a long way towards helping you figure out all of the other things. If you don't have the time or patience for a full outline, maybe attempt breaking your story down into 30 different plot points so that every day you at least have a starting point for what you're going to be working on. For a lot of the Nano community, October is actually Preptober, where we spend the month getting ready for Nano. So use whatever time you have left, do whatever preparation makes sense, and be ready to start November 1st. If you are trying to get involved in any sort of online writing community throughout November, you will very much find that the event does not exist in a bubble. There are all sorts of fun things going on throughout the month that may not be directly connected to the event, but are all part of the community trying to get excited and get involved and get words down on the page, all of those good things. Like, for example, For the Words is an online writing platform that tries to turn writing into a bit of a video game by using monster battles and quests and leveling up your characters, all while writing words on the platform or elsewhere. So through November, they tend to have special events and extra quests and extra exciting goodies and wardrobe items you can win, just to make it that much more fun for anyone who may be involved in Nano anyway, or even for anyone who isn't necessarily participating in Nano. You tend to find all sorts of good things throughout November, whether or not this is a thing you are doing. When figuring out what's going to happen in your book, it can be really useful to use a structure, and there are so many different possibilities that it's almost guaranteed you'll find something that works for you. 3-act structure, 5-act structure, there are lots of lists online to help you figure out what makes the most sense for you in your book, and having that structure can go a long way towards helping your pacing and keeping your novel on track. Spend some time doing meal prep, maybe freezing some meals you can thaw later so you don't have to worry about it in November. If you're having trouble figuring out what to write, check out some of the idea adoption areas on the NaNoWriMo forums. Lots of people put ideas out into the universe that they know they won't have time to write themselves in case they can find a good home. And who knows, you may have a fantastic November writing something you might never have thought of on your own. Take some time to think about your all-time favorite books and why you love them, and then make a list of the tropes that keep showing up again and again and find ways to insert those into your NaNoWriMo story. Or if you're not sure where to start, check out tvtropes.com. Don't be afraid to dream big. Tell yourself that this is going to be the year you win NaNoWriMo, even if you've never done it before. Write that book you've been putting off for a really long time. Set a ridiculously high word count goal. Dream big. See what happens. Get to know the new NaNoWriMo website before November 1st so that you know what you're jumping into. If you're still feeling kind of unsteady about it, Megan recently did a video with a whole walkthrough giving you an idea of how everything works now, so absolutely check that out. Take some time to pre-cast your characters. Using pictures of celebrities or just randoms you find on the internet can go a long way towards helping you have consistent character descriptions. If you haven't found your online writing tribe yet, see if you can talk an in-person friend or family member into trying NaNoWriMo this year. So many people have always thought about writing a novel, and maybe this year is when they're going to do it. Start going through baby name websites now and creating a stockpile of names that you like, so when inevitably characters come up that you didn't think about before, you can just name them quickly and move on. Don't be afraid to try something new this year, whether that's a new genre, a new writing process, or really whatever else might be calling your name. Whether you're naturally a pantser or a plotter, if this is your first ever National Novel Writing Month, I highly recommend having at least some sort of outline, and if you're nervous, a super detailed outline. Having something to guide you through each day to always know more or less what's going to come next, so you don't have to spend a lot of time just staring at the screen or stressing about getting your word count done for the day because you've wasted too much time trying to work out what you're supposed to be writing, can be really helpful. Give some thought to character arcs, not just who your characters are going to be at the beginning of the book, but how they'll have changed and grown by the final chapter. Always, always, always remember that it's completely okay if you don't hit 50,000 words. Every single word that you write that you wouldn't have written otherwise is a victory. Follow hashtag NaNoWriMo for all of the help and encouragement you may not have even known you needed. Stock up on your caffeinated beverage of choice. This should do me for a while. Once you know what you're going to be working on, head over to the NaNoWriMo website and create your project for 2019. Having it in official NaNoWriMo novel form will help it feel a little bit more real and less like something you're just going to be working on someday, maybe eventually. Even if you won't be attending any in-person events, you should still join your local region so that the words you write will count towards their total, and you still feel like you're part of something bigger, which can go a long way towards keeping you motivated throughout the entire month. There are going to be a lot of days this November where even the idea of getting started just feels like a lot of work. So remember that sometimes this is the hardest part. Give yourself permission to just write one sentence and then see where it goes from there, because that one sentence is going to lead into another sentence, and then hopefully before you know it, you'll have written something significant, which is awesome. If somewhere throughout November you find yourself in the peak writing zone, embrace it and keep going. Stay in the flow, stay with your characters, and get ahead of the game or catch up, whatever the case might be. If you find yourself disappointed because you missed a writing day during Nano, take a deep breath and forgive yourself. A novel is not written on any one day. There are no make or break moments. You've just got to keep going. If the whole process gets overwhelming, don't forget to enjoy the little things, like thunderstorms. Having flaws is a big part of what makes us all human, so make sure your character's flaws are playing a role in your plot. Maybe switch things up this year. If you're usually a plotter, try pantsing. If you're usually a pantser, get started on that outline now and see what happens. So this piece of advice is something that a lot of Nano veterans might tell you never to do, but if the only way that you feel like you can continue participating in NaNoWriMo at all is to switch to a different project, just do it. This is your month, your book. Do whatever it's going to take to keep you engaged and excited with the story. Don't make the decision lightly, but if that's what it's going to take, just get it done. Get out of the house and go write somewhere new. A coffee shop is a classic for a reason. For all sorts of NaNoWriMo inspiration and advice, check out the official forums, assuming they're working by then. Maybe the tip here is to avoid the official forums. Unclear. If you already know that you're not going to be able to write consistently all throughout November, check out pacemaker.press and they can help you figure out a game plan for how many words you can write on various days, taking into consideration how busy you're going to be or which days you're going to have to skip, and adapt the plan as you go and things change. Try making writing part of your daily routine in November. Try doing it at the same time every day so that when you sit down and get to work, your brain knows to just jump back into the story and get those words written. Remember that it's okay to nano rebelliously. If you want to keep working on a project you've already started, write some fan fiction, just work on homework and essays and journaling all month, that's totally okay. When it comes down to it, it's all about you and what you want to create. On those really tough writing days, just do a little bit at a time. 50 or 100 words can add up really quickly given the opportunity. Don't forget to utilize the wonderful graph you have access to on the NaNoWriMo website. Not only is it super motivating seeing your word count go up day by day through the graph, but they also give you an updated word count goal for the day, adapting to how much you've actually written, figuring out how much you still need to write, making everything that much more manageable. Whenever you have a day off from all of your other responsibilities, I know it is so tempting to get into your pajamas and write in bed or on the couch and just stay super comfortable and cozy all day as you fall into your manuscript. But if that isn't working for you, there's also something to be said for putting on the kind of clothes you usually wear to school or work, where you want to be taken seriously so that you will take yourself seriously. You put on those clothes, you sit down at your desk or the table or wherever it is you do your writing and your work, and you tell your brain it is time to get down to business. We are taking this seriously. Let's get those words written. You know what? That pajama thing sounds pretty great too. You should also try that. If you happen to live somewhere where it's warm during November, maybe get outside to do some writing. Being close to nature can offer great inspiration, but if you live somewhere cold, try cozying up and writing by a fire. If you don't have time for super in-depth character worksheets, try figuring out one thing you love about each of your characters so that you have a jumping off point to get to know them as you write. Remember, not every scene you write has to make it into the final draft of your book. If you know that the end of November is going to be particularly crazy for you, or you're one of those people who always tends to start out strong in November and then tapers off, you should really consider doing a reverse nano. This is a technique that I've never tried myself, but always sounds really cool. Basically, you are starting out with a really big word count, and then each day that word count goal gets a little bit smaller, so you're starting out at 3,346 words for the day, and by the last day of November, you only have to write one word, rather than doing a consistent word count throughout the month of November. I think this sounds really interesting and like it could be a great fit for a lot of people. Paraphrasing the always fantastic advice from Susan Dennard on this one, but take the time to figure out what the magical cookies are in each of your scenes, those things that get you excited to write them, so that when the time comes to write that scene, you are ready, you are excited, and those words are just going to fly onto the page. If you're in a position to do so, don't forget to donate to National Novel Writing Month so they can continue to do great work. If you're new to Nano, it's worth taking the time to talk to someone who has done this before, been through it, and see what all of their tips are, or if you're a veteran, make the time to share some of your wisdom with anyone who might be doing this for the first time and is looking for advice. From the beginning of the month until the end, water is your friend. Don't forget to stay hydrated. When figuring out your characters and their personalities, give some thought to how all of these people may end up clashing with one another, having different fears or different goals or just different ways of doing things. There are so many different ways that interpersonal conflicts can help drive your story forward. If your characters or their relationships are starting to feel a little stale, throw a terrible secret into the mix. It can't hurt. Well, it can't hurt you. It might hurt them. Once you win Nano, don't forget to check out all of the rewards and discounts over on the winners page. There are usually some pretty awesome tools to help you get inspired moving into your next year of writing. Consider waking up early. I know it's going to feel awful, but even an extra 20 minutes of dedicated writing time can make a big difference over the course of an entire month. Plan ahead for some time to check in with yourself around November 15th. This is when you'll hit the midpoint and things are going to start to look a little bit more stressful than maybe you initially anticipated. But by this point, so many people have already given up, and that's not going to be you. Remember, this is always supposed to be fun. If it gets to the point where you are stressing and just really dreading your writing every day, figure out what you need to change in order to ensure that NaNoWriMo 2019 will be a positive experience. Even though editing should not be a priority during NaNoWriMo, keep a list of things you already know you want to change. There's no sense figuring out a big plot point in your story and forgetting it because you don't want to go back and edit right now. So keep a list, and when the time to edit comes, you'll already have a place to start. On those days leading up to November 1st, where you're just eager to get started, try playing over your first scene in your head. That way, when the time comes to actually write it, you already have a pretty visual idea of what's going to be happening and what everything's going to look like. Use downtime like your commute to brainstorm what happens next in your story. If you're in the midst of Nano and struggling with a scene or not sure what's supposed to happen or how to get from A to B, it is totally okay to skip ahead. I've heard a lot of resistance to this idea, but at the end of the day, just keep that momentum going. When you get into a writing groove, getting up and moving around can be the last thing you want to do, but set a timer and remind yourself just to get up, maybe do a lap around the house and then get back to work, and your body will thank you for it later. This is pretty standard Nano advice, and it doesn't work for everybody, but try not to edit as you go. Focus on getting new words on the page and worry about the rest of it later. Keep a notebook or notes app on you whenever possible for those times when you aren't writing and inspiration strikes anyway. 50,000 words can feel pretty daunting, but at the end of the day, all you have to do is write one word at a time, and you've got this. If at any stage you're struggling or frustrated, just get out of the house for a few minutes, stretch your legs, and go for a walk. If you're pantsing and stuck, try taking a random book off your bookshelf, opening to any page, reading a line. With a parting caress of the doorframe, Olga squares her shoulders and takes the first step out of the door. Don't take the line exactly, but try to let it inspire you and figure out how something similar might happen in your current work in progress, and go from there, building a scene, figuring out what happens next, or just winging it. Don't forget that it's okay to rest during NaNoWriMo. If you need to take a nap or just take it easy or take some time away from your book, that is totally okay. Your writing will be better off for it in the long run. Check out some awesome writing podcasts like Writing Excuses or How to Win Nano for inspiration and advice. Your cell phone can be a great tool for writing on the go so that you can get in a few words here and there throughout your day. Not sure what happens next in your story? Search online for writing prompts that might give you that extra nudge. Need a change of pace or some inspiration? Try the library. Do not put any pressure on your NaNoWriMo project to be great or even good. It can be a whole mess of bad, and this will still be a huge accomplishment. Not sure what happens next? Maybe one of your characters disappears. Whenever you're online during Nano, make sure to cheer other people on along the way. Need a little extra motivation? Do a quick online search for any books that were written during NaNoWriMo. You may find a few of your favorites on there, and before you know it, your name could be listed among those hallowed ranks. If you find yourself struggling with motivation, check out some of the WordNerds older write-ins. We've recorded and saved so many of our past write-ins where you can jump in for an hour or two, do some short sprints followed by some breaks, and there is more than enough to get you through the month. NaNoWriMo is not the time to be worrying about what genres are selling, what trends are selling within your genre, any of that. Write the story you want to write and forget the rest. It's never a bad idea to consider getting out of the house and going to in-person NaNoWriMo events like write-ins to meet other regional writers and get a little more motivated than you might on your own. Here on the WordNerds channel, we're going to have write-ins every Sunday during November, which is a great time to get ahead on your word count and engage in the community a little bit while having some fun. NaNoWriMo is not the time to sweat the details. If you know everything there is to know about your character's history and personality and everything about your world building and setting, fantastic. But if you don't, keep it all kind of vague for now and flesh it all out in the next draft. A great playlist can go a long way towards keeping you motivated throughout November, so if you have a little extra time before Nano starts, jump into Spotify or your music sanctuary of choice, put together a playlist that's going to keep you motivated and get you into the right mood for your particular story. Mid-month, you may find that your plot has gone nothing like what you originally planned, but you're curious to see what happens to it anyway. Run with that feeling. An outline is just one possibility for where a story might go. If you're writing and your brain is starting to feel a little bit foggy, a snack break can do you all kinds of favors, although a healthier snack is probably a good idea. While it can be helpful to write something every day, you don't have to write the same amount every day. So utilize the weekends or whatever makes sense with your schedule to get a lot done so you can relax more when things get hectic. If you're pantsing, it's possible that your plot might take a turn for the ridiculous, but run with it anyway. Something wonderful might happen. No matter what time you find yourself writing during Nano, Twitter can be an amazing place to find ongoing, timed writing sprints to keep you getting words on the page. Don't forget to give some thought to your antagonist's motivation. Most bad guys aren't bad just for the sake of moving your plot forward. If you're getting hung up on a particular detail of your story and you can't seem to move forward, something like a secondary character name or a detail of your character's profession, it is totally okay to add a filler word for now, something like blank or filler, and come back to it and work all of that detail out later once this manuscript is finished. It can also be helpful to add some sort of symbol like an asterisk so you can quickly search through your manuscript later and find all of the things that still need to be worked through. While going to local write-ins is always awesome, if you live near a bigger city, you can have a look to see if your group is hosting any non-writing events to celebrate NaNoWriMo as well. This can be kickoff parties, thank God it's over parties, board game nights, somewhere during the middle of November to de-stress. Lots of the groups do this, and I find they can be a lot of fun. Even if you are a hardcore plotter, the time may come where you don't know what happens next. In that case, embrace that pantsing spirit and follow your gut. There's a lot to be said for saying things out loud, so if you're having a plot problem of some kind, pull aside a friend or family member and just talk through it out loud. Tell them where things are in the plot right now and what you're trying to work out. Maybe they'll have great advice, but more likely than not, it'll give you some new insight that you might not have figured out before. And if there's nobody around, worst case scenario, a pet will usually do the trick, or even some sort of inanimate object. When November is said and done, write down everything that went really well or things you might want to do differently so that you'll remember it all for next year. Either before or during Nano, it is totally okay to write some scenes or snippets or whatever you feel like just to get to know your characters a little bit better. If you're really struggling to write a particular scene, there is nothing wrong with quickly summarizing what it is you'd like to see happen if you already know but are just not feeling writing it in that particular moment, and moving on to the next thing. You can come back later in the month or later in the year, whatever makes sense for you. Don't overthink it, any of it. Focus on getting the words down for now, and you can worry about everything else come December. Try to write something every day, even if it's just one sentence. That way, if things start to go off track, at least you know you are still moving your story forward, momentum is on your side, and that puts you way farther ahead of writing a book than most people. Remember that right around when you're wrapping up NaNoWriMo is a great time to start thinking about writing goals for the new year. Consider getting yourself a NaNoWriMo t-shirt, and not just to celebrate if you win, but to celebrate the fact that win or lose, you were brave enough to give it a try. When the month is said and done, don't forget to find ways to stay in touch with any new Nano friends you made, because writing friends are awesome all year round. If, like me, you thrive on a little bit of competition, try seeking out any word war partners on Twitter, or really any NaNoWriMo communities that you're doing timed sprints with someone, checking back in, and then seeing who wrote the most words, where ultimately the winner doesn't matter, but it's still super helpful. If you make it to the end of Nano and you haven't finished your manuscript, it is so important to finish what you start. You don't need to put any time constraints on the book or how many words you need to write in order to finish it, but make sure you eventually cross that finish line. Once November is finished, give yourself a break before you jump back into your story. Use the time to recharge, get remotivated, and figure out where you're going next. Or, if you're not feeling worn out, do the exact opposite and keep going while the story's still fresh. Win or lose, come December 1st, don't forget to celebrate. Before, after, or during Nano, make sure you take the time to subscribe to your favorite writing channels.